The alien council chamber echoed with laughter. Tall figures with blue skin and glowing eyes leaned back in their seats, their voices mocking and cold. "Let's send her," said one of them, pointing at the female warrior standing silently in. "The center Lavira will be the perfect joke," another chuckled. "Give her to the human ambassador. Make him think it's a gift, a bride from the Empire." They all laughed again. Louder this time. The idea was cruel, but that made it even funnier to them. Humans were new to the galactic stage, not yet trusted, not yet feared. This would show them their place, small, weak, and not to be taken seriously. Lavera stood, tall, her armor shining with battle scars. She was a warrior, not a bride. Not a toy for council games, but she could not say no. Orders were orders, and deep down, she wanted to see what this human was like. The spaceship landed on a floating dock above the Earth colony. Ethan stepped forward. The human ambassador. He had short brown hair, calm eyes, and a strange kind of strength in his posture. He did not flinch, did not laugh, did not look confused when they presented Lavera. He simply bowed and said, "Welcome." That made the alien officers uncomfortable. They expected him to panic, to reject her, to make a fool of himself. But Ethan was calm. He even offered his hand to her. Lavera didn't take it. She walked beside him in silence, her steps heavy, her heart colder than space in the human compound. Things were quiet. There were no guards, no chains, no weapons pointed at her, just a soft bed, food on the table, and a room with a window showing the stars. Lavera waited for the trap. But it never came. Ethan did not touch her, did not order her. He simply said, "You don't have to stay, but you are welcome here." Then he left the room, letting her breathe, for days. Lavera watched him. He worked late, spoke kindly too. His staff, and trained in silence when no one looked. He was strong, not like her people, but in a quiet way. He lifted heavy tools without effort, moved like water when sparring with a robot. She noticed his eyes, always watching, always thinking. She tried to scare him once, entered the training room, challenged him to a match. He smiled slightly, accepted, and stood across from her in one fast move. He dodged her strike and tapped her armor with his wooden stick. It wasn't painful, but it made her pause. No one had moved like that before, not even her instructors. "You're holding back," Ethan said, wiping sweat from his brow. "So are you." She replied without thinking. That night, something changed in her. She sat outside, looking at the stars through the glass roof. Ethan brought her a cup of something warm and sat beside her without a word. They didn't speak, but the silence between them felt safe. The next day, the alien council sent a message. "How is the human? Did he faint when he saw you? Has he begged for your return?" Lavera didn't answer. She simply turned off the screen and stared at her own reflection. What was this? Feeling? She was not supposed to feel anything. Not interest, not peace, not warmth. She was a warrior, not a lover, not someone who wanted to stay. But Ethan never treated her like a joke. He treated her like a person, like an equal. The council had made her a pawn in their game, but she was starting to think she didn't want to play their game anymore. Maybe she wanted to choose her own path. Maybe the joke wasn't on the human at all. Maybe the joke was on them. She stood up that night and looked at the stars again. Somewhere deep inside, something shifted. She didn't know what it meant yet, but she knew this was no longer just a joke. This was the start of something bigger, something that could change everything. And if the council thought this was funny, they were about to be very, very surprised. Lavera stood in the training room, arms crossed, her sharp eyes locked on Ethan. She had watched him train quietly each day. Smooth moves, fast steps, but always alone. Today, she decided it was time to test him. She didn't believe a human could match her, not even this calm, polite man who somehow never looked afraid. You train like a warrior, she said. Stepping into the mat-covered floor, Ethan turned toward her, sweat dripping from his brow. His wooden stick still in hand, only to stay sharp, he replied, "Would you like to spar?" Lavera gave a grin that was more challenge than smile. "I want to see if the human can keep up," she said, drawing a long silver training blade. Ethan nodded without fear. He picked up a second wooden stick and moved into stance. The match began in silence. She struck first fast, precise, aiming to disarm, not hurt. But Ethan moved like wind, sliding under her blade, tapping her leg with his stick. She blinked, surprised. He wasn't faster than her, but he read her moves like a book. Again, she hissed, and the floor echoed with the clash of wood against metal. Back and forth they moved, Ethan dodging, blocking, landing small hits. He never attacked with full strength, but neither did she. Something about the match became more than a fight. It was a conversation of movement, a dance between two different worlds. She lunged with a feint, twisted into a spin, but Ethan dropped low, sweeping her. Legs with his stick, she hit the mat hard. The blade flying from her hand. Silence. Ethan stepped back and offered his hand. Lavera stared at him, her pride burning inside her chest, but instead of anger, she felt something else. Respect, maybe, or something deeper. "You could have one faster," she said. Still sitting on the floor, "You could have two," he replied softly. Then he added, "But I didn't want to embarrass my guest." She laughed. Actually, laughed, a short, sharp sound that shocked her own ears. This human was dangerous in a different way. Not just strong, but clever, balanced, and calm. Later that night, Lavera sat on the balcony, the stars above her head bright and still. Ethan walked out, holding 2 cups of hot tea. She took one without a word, sipping slowly, watching his face. "You're not like the others," she said finally. "I've been told that," he replied. "You don't act like prey," she added. "Do you want me to?" He asked with a small smile, her eyes narrowed. Then she looked away. "No," she whispered, "I don't." They sat in silence again, a silence that felt heavy and full. Lavera thought about her people, how they laughed when they sent her here. They thought she'd scare the human, maybe even hurt him. They never imagined she would feel something. Ethan broke the silence. "Why did they send you?" She didn't answer at first, then said, "They thought it would be funny to humiliate me, to show that humans are weak and should never sit at their table." Ethan nodded slowly. "And what do you think now?" T asked Lavera. Looked at him, really looked. "I think they're afraid," she said. "Afraid of what you might become." There was a long pause. "You could go back to them," Ethan said quietly. "Leave now, and they'll forgive you. But if you stay too long, they'll see it as betrayal," she finished for him. And they both knew it was true. The next morning, a message came from the Alien Council. Cold voices echoed through the room. "The joke has run its course," said the High Commander. "Return at once, Lavera, or face consequences." She stared at the screen without blinking. Ethan stood nearby, but said nothing. It was her choice now. Later that day, she returned to the training room. Ethan was there again, moving through slow, fluid drills. She didn't interrupt, just watched. When he finally stopped, she walked over and said, "I'm not going back, not yet." He looked at her with calm eyes. "Then you're welcome to stay," he said. "But you should know, if war comes," she said, "I'll stand beside you." Their hands brushed for a second, accidental, maybe, but something passed between them. Not just heat, not just tension. A spark Lavera walked away without another word, but her heart was beating fast. The council thought they were in control. They thought they were the strong ones. But Lavera was starting to believe something dangerous, something thrilling, that maybe the human wasn't the one. Who was weak, maybe, just maybe, he was the beginning of something greater. And she wanted to be part of it, even if it meant war. The stars above them looked frozen, cold, and endless. But the balcony on Earth's orbit station was warm, quiet, and still. Ethan stood near the edge, his hands resting on the railing. Lavera walked beside him, her armor replaced by a soft, black tunic. It felt strange, not wearing metal, stranger still. She didn't miss it tonight. For days they had trained together, eaten together, and talked little. But tonight felt different. The air was heavy, like something unspoken was waiting to break free. Ethan handed her a drink, warm, sweet, and made from earth fruit. She sipped slowly, unsure if she liked it or not. Still, she didn't hand it back. "Tell me something," Ethan said softly. Lavera turned her head. "What?" "Something real," he said, his eyes still watching the stars. "Something no one else knows." She was silent for a long moment, then sat on a bench when she finally spoke. Her voice was low. "When I was young, I hated the warrior training. I cried every night, but I never showed it. They beat us until we forgot how to feel." Ethan sat beside her, quiet, listening. "My people believe pain makes us strong," she continued. "But I think they confuse pain with fear. I stopped crying, yes, but I also stopped laughing." Her fingers tightened around the cup, "and I don't know if I'll ever laugh again." Ethan looked at her, really looked. "You just haven't had a reason yet," he said. "Maybe. It's time someone gave you one." That made her blink. Then frown. "You think you can fix me?" He shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "I think you can fix yourself, but maybe I can help." They sat there, the silence soft, no, not heavy, like before. Lavera stared at the stars again, but they didn't look as cold anymore. She asked, "What about you? Your secret?" Ethan smiled. "Just a little, when I was a kid." He said, "I used to talk to the stars. I thought if I talked long enough, someone would answer." She tilted her head. "Curious, did they?" He turned to her, his smile widening just a bit. "Maybe they did," he said. "Just not in the way I expected." Lavera didn't know why, but that made her chest feel warm. She turned away, pretending to focus on the stars again. "You?" "Humans are strange," she muttered. "Strange is not always bad," he replied. "Sometimes strange means free." Later that night, she lay in her room, unable to sleep. Her mind raced with thoughts she had never let in before. Ethan's words, his calm strength, his quiet understanding, why did they matter so much now? Why did they echo in her heart like battle drums? She walked to the window and stared out again. The stars seemed to call to her, but not in the same way. They were no longer cold reminders of duty and war. They were the promise of something more. The next day, Lavera joined Ethan in the garden, a small space filled with alien and human plants. She saw him kneeling beside a patch of green leaves, his hands in the soil. "What are you doing?" she asked, learning to grow. He said simply, "Plants." She asked, confused. "No," he said, standing up and brushing off his hands. People, that hit her like a blade. He wasn't just talking about food. He was talking about change, about connection, and she realized she had already started to change. Not because he forced her, not because he tried to win her, but because he listened, understood, and stayed. She trained harder that day, moved faster, hit stronger, and when Ethan watched her with approval in his eyes, she felt something stir deep inside, something dangerous, hope. That evening, they sat in the same spot on the balcony, but this time, their shoulders touched, just barely. Lavera didn't move away. Ethan didn't apologize. "Why are you helping me?" she asked finally. "You're not just being polite, are you?" "No," he answered simply. "Then why?" He looked at her with calm, open eyes. "Because I see the fire in you," he said, "and I think the galaxy will burn brighter. If you choose your own path." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The silence between them spoke more than words ever could, and far above, the stars continued to shine. But Lavira no longer feared their cold light. For the first time in her life, she wasn't alone in the dark. The message came in the middle of the night. A quiet beep from Lavera's wrist communicator. She was alone in her room. The stars glowing faintly through the window. She tapped the screen, expecting routine orders or maybe another joke from the council. But what she saw made her blood freeze. Activate Protocol X9. The message read, terminate the human quietly. Then return to command. This mission has gone too far. Lavera stared at the words, her hand shaking for the first time in years. They weren't joking anymore. The council wanted Ethan dead, not because he was dangerous, at least, not yet, but because she was growing too close. They saw it, they feared it, and now they wanted to erase the mistake before it became something they couldn't control. She turned off the screen and sat down slowly. Her warrior heart had made hard choices. Before, she had taken lives, followed orders without question, but this was different. This wasn't war. This was personal. She stood, walked to the cabinet, and opened a small metal box. Inside was a silver-tipped needle poison made by her people. Fast, silent, undetectable. She picked it up, stared at it, then at her own reflection in the mirror. Her eyes, once cold and sharp, now looked unsure. The warrior inside her screamed for duty. But something else, something new, whispered for mercy. She walked through the silent halls. The needle hidden in her sleeve. Ethan was in the control room, working alone. His eyes focused on the screen. He didn't look up when she entered. Can't sleep? He asked softly. No, she said, voice tight. She walked closer, each step heavy. The needle pressed against her wrist, cold and ready. But then he turned and smiled. Not out of fear, not out of formality, but real, warm, honest. You okay? He asked, noticing something in her eyes. Lavira froze. Her fingers clenched the needle. And then slowly, painfully, she let it drop to the floor. It bounced once, then rolled under the table. Ethan didn't see it, but he saw her face change. He stood up, gentle but firm. What is it? She stepped back, her voice breaking for the first time. They told me to kill you, she whispered. Ethan didn't move, didn't raise a weapon, he just listened. I was supposed to poison you, she said, staring at the floor. They said I've been here too long, that I'm forgetting who I am. He nodded slowly. I believe you, he said calmly. You didn't do it, Lavira. That means something. She looked up, shocked. You're not angry? I should be, he admitted, but I'm not. Because I see what this is. This is your moment. The moment you decide who you are. She stepped closer, her voice low and tight. What if I'm no one? Ethan reached out, placing his hand over hers. Then we find out together, he said. The alarm rang, suddenly sharp, loud, urgent. Red lights flashed across the room. A ship was approaching Leon markings. No broadcast ID. Weapons online. They're here, Lavera said, her voice steady now. They think I failed, and now they'll finish it themselves. Ethan moved quickly. Locking down the doors, we have two options, he said. Run or fight. Lavera's eyes narrowed. No, she said. We make a third option, disappear. They moved fast, packing gear, wiping logs, erasing traces Lavera used. Her code to shut down the landing pad sensors within 20 minutes. They were aboard Ethan's personal scout ship. Engines roared to life, and the stars shifted as they jumped into deep space. Safe for now, inside the ship, silence returned. Ethan looked at her, still calm but tired. So, he said, you saved me. Lavira nodded. And betrayed my people, she added quietly. No, he said firmly. You saved both of us from being tools in someone else's war. She sat beside him, her voice softer now. I don't know where we go next. Then, let's find out, he said, smiling again. Together, she didn't smile back. But she didn't look away either, in her heart. The war between duty and feeling had ended. She had chosen her path. And she would face whatever came next by Ethan's side. The stars stretched ahead like roads untold. The galaxy was hunting them. But Lavira no longer felt fear. She had betrayed. The council, yes, but she had protected something far more important: hope. Lavira stared at the medical scanner. The soft hum of the ship's engine filled the quiet room. Her hands were cold, her heart racing. The screen blinked once, then showed the results clear, final, and impossible. She was pregnant, her breath. Caught in her throat, alien and human, two different bloodlines. Two enemies of the stars had created life. A child inside her. She stepped back from the console. Almost tripping. This couldn't be real. Her people had always said it wasn't possible. That human genes were too unstable. That their kind couldn't mix. And yet here it was, growing. Inside her, Ethan knocked gently on the door. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. Lavira didn't answer right away. She pressed her hand to her stomach, still feeling nothing, but knowing everything had changed. Finally, she opened the door. Ethan stepped in and looked at her face. Something was wrong. He could feel it. "What is it?" he asked gently. Lavira didn't use many words. "I'm pregnant," she said. Then, silence. Ethan froze. His eyes blinked slowly, then widened. He stepped back, then forward again. "How?" he asked, then quickly added, "I mean I know." "How, Butar? You sure?" She nodded once. "The scan doesn't lie." She said. He sat down on the edge of the bed, hands running through his hair. 1,000 thoughts rushed through his mind. Fear, confusion, wonder, guilt. And something else, hope. Lavira stood still, arms crossed, staring at nothing. "I've never heard of this happening," she whispered. "No one has." Ethan looked up at her. "What does this mean?" he asked. She shook her head. "I don't know." Later that day, they ran deeper scans. The child was developing fast, not dangerously, but faster than normal. Its DNA was stable, shockingly stable. Half human, half cerulean, but stronger than either. It had no flaws, no signs of sickness. In fact, the ship's AI reported something strange. The child was emitting soft energy pulses. Small waves that affected nearby machines. Lights flickered, doors opened on their own. Ethan stared at the readings. This baby. "It's changing things already," he said quietly. Lavira nodded. "It's not just a baby," she said. "It's a new kind of being." She started feeling different too. Her senses sharper, her strength more controlled, her heartbeat slower, more powerful. She could feel the child inside her. Like a warm sun, calm but growing. But not everyone was calm. The ship's sensors picked up distant scans. Other ships searching nearby systems. The alien empire was looking for her. They were getting closer. Lavira stood at the front of the ship, staring out the window. Ethan walked beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "They'll find us," he said. "Yes," she replied. "They'll try to take the child." "Yes," she said again. "But we won't let them," Ethan added. She turned to him, her voice steady. "No," she said. "We fight if we must." The ship landed on a small forest moon, hidden from long-range scans. Ethan and Lavira began preparing defenses. They set traps, shielded the ship, and programmed escape routes. They had no army. No allies, just each other, and the unborn child that now held power neither of them could understand. That night, Lavira sat near a small fire under the stars. Ethan cooked rations while keeping an eye on her. She was different, no softer in some ways, but harder in others. She was no longer just a warrior. She was becoming a protector. A mother. She spoke quietly. In my culture, children are raised in combat halls. No toys, no music. Only drills. Ethan frowned. That won't happen. Here, he said, not to this child. She looked at him, her voice low. Do you think it will be like us? Ethan smiled faintly. I think it will be better. They didn't sleep much that night. The stars above felt closer, heavier, as if the galaxy was holding its breath. Lavira placed her hand on her stomach. There was no movement yet, but she could feel the warmth, the light, the strange strength. This wasn't just about love anymore. This wasn't just a joke bride or a silly prank from a cruel council. This was something far more powerful. A child that shouldn't exist, but did. A symbol of unity, of rebellion, of a future no one could have predicted. And Lavera was no longer running. She was ready to fight, not for herself, but for the small life growing inside her. Asterisk, the first ship arrived without warning. It dropped. From hyperspace, above the forest moon silent, black, deadly, its hull bore the mark of the Xerillian Empire. The same empire that once laughed when they called her a joke bride. But now there was no laughter, only fear, inside the hidden bunker. Ethan saw the alert flash red. He turned to Lavira, who was already strapping on her armor. They found us, he said. She nodded. Let them come. The scanner beeped again. 2 more ships followed, then 3, a full squadron. They're not here to talk, Ethan said. No, Lavira replied, tightening the strap across her chest. They're here to erase me and the child. She placed her hand gently on her belly. The baby inside her was still and calm, but the soft pulses of energy coming from it had grown stronger. Even now, the ship's systems flickered and adapted. Metal shifted like it was alive, responding. To the child's unseen signal, Ethan stood beside her, holding his plasma rifle. They weren't soldiers in a war, they were a family protecting their future. From the forest, the sound of engines roared. Dropships landed, shaking the ground. Xerillian warriors poured out, tall and armored. Moving with purpose, but they didn't. Expect what happened next the moment they stepped near the ship. Their weapons shut down, sparks flew, power flickered. Targeting systems failed. The child's energy was interfering with their tech. One by one, scanners went dark, guns jammed. Armor froze in place. What is this? Shouted one commander, banging on his useless blaster. But Lavira already knew. It's the baby, she whispered. It's protecting itself. She moved like lightning, jumping from the high cliff and landing in the center of the enemy squad. Her blades flashed, striking armor joints, cutting wires, disabling systems, not killing, just stopping. This wasn't about revenge. This was a message Ethan fired from above, targeting supply crates and engines, setting off controlled explosions to push them back. The battle was fast, brutal, and one-sided. In minutes, half the enemy force was unconscious or trapped in malfunctioning suits. Then, the final wave came. An elite general dropped from the command ship, a giant clad in golden armor, eyes burning with hatred. You are a traitor. Lavira, he growled. You were a joke hand, now you think you matter. Lavira stepped forward, blades drawn. I was your joke, she said. Now, I am your nightmare. The duel was fierce, their blades clashing like thunder, but Lavira had changed. She wasn't just a warrior anymore. Her strength came from purpose, from something greater than honor. With a final spin, she disarmed the general and pinned him to the ground, her blade at his throat. She didn't kill him. She leaned in and whispered, Go back and tell them the bride you laughed at is still alive, and she carries the future in her hands. She stood, turned, and walked away. No one followed her. Not one dared. Back at the ship, Ethan helped her inside. The systems were glowing now, panels pulsing gently as if breathing. The baby's presence had bonded with the ship, changing making it something new. They sat together. Ethan wrapping an arm around her shoulder, she rested her head against him, eyes closed. "I was never meant to survive this," she said quietly. "You did more than survive," Ethan whispered. "You changed the rules." She smiled softly. "For the first time, I feel free." Across the stars, the message spread. A full strike team had failed, an entire squadron. Returned in shame, and the name Lavera once used as a joke was now spoken with fear. The alien empire scrambled to decide its next move. Some called for more ships, bigger armies. Others whispered a terrible truth. The child growing inside her was a new force. A power that could not be controlled or killed. It was the future. And the future didn't belong to them anymore. Inside the ship, Lavera placed her hand on her belly again. The child responded with a soft wave of warmth. She smiled, stronger than ever. They had tried to use her. They had laughed at her now. They feared her, and the war they started as a joke was far from over. The doors of the Great Council chamber opened with a deep hiss. Every alien leader turned their head. They expected a prisoner, a failed mission, or maybe a broken warrior. Instead, they saw her Lavera, the so-called joke bride, standing tall, armor shining, eyes glowing with quiet fire, and beside Hirathon.com, proud, holding her hand. The council hall, filled with silence, suddenly felt cold. Gasps echoed when they saw her belly, round, full, and unmistakably pregnant. One council elder stood up so fast his chair clattered behind him. "This cannot be," he shouted. "A hybrid." "It's impossible." Lavera stepped forward, each footstep echoing like thunder. "I was your joke," she said clearly. "You sent me to embarrass a human, to humiliate him." She looked at them one by one, her voice like a blade. "But the only ones who should be embarrassed are you." Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence beside her said everything. Another counselor stood, voice shaking. "Destroy it. End this mistake before it grows." Lavera's eyes narrowed. "Say that again," she said coldly. The room fell silent. Then the lights flickered. The walls vibrated. A strange pulse moved through the air, soft but powerful. The baby, still unborn, was reacting. Machines in the chamber dimmed, then rebooted. Council armor suits flashed warnings. Systems glitching. The child didn't cry or scream. It simply reminded them it was alive and aware. Lavera placed her hand on her stomach. The energy stopped, but the message had been delivered. "The child is not a mistake," she said. "It is evolution. It is the future you never planned for." Another elder, older than the rest, stood slowly. His voice was calm but deep. "And what do you want, Lavera?" "Revenge? Power? To rule?" She shook her head. "No," she said. "I want peace, but peace on new terms." She looked at Ethan, then back at the council. "We are not asking for a place at your table. We are building a new one." The room erupted in arguments, shouts, and confusion. Some were afraid, others furious. A few stunned into silence. Then Lavera raised her voice, calm but strong. "You can try to stop us again," she said. "Send your fleets, your assassins, your lies." She stepped closer to the center of the hall. "But know this, every time you strike at us, we grow stronger. You taught me to fight," she added. "But Ethan taught me something greater. To choose." Ethan finally spoke, his voice steady. "You thought you could control everything," he said. "But the galaxy doesn't belong to you. Change is coming whether you want it or not." Suddenly, the chamber lights dimmed again. A small orb floated from Lavera's wrist device, a hologram projection of the child's heartbeat. It pulsed with energy, vibrating through every console in the room, and then just for a second, every counselor heard a voice in their mind. Soft, pure, innocent, and powerful. "I see you," it whispered, and I am not afraid." Gasps filled the room. Several counselors fell to their knees, their minds overwhelmed by the presence of something greater. Not a weapon, not a soldier, but a child already beyond their control. Lavira deactivated the projection. The room fell quiet again. No. One moved, no one spoke. They had come face to face with the future, and they knew they couldn't stop it. She turned around slowly. Ethan by her side, neither looked back as they walked out. No one dared to stop them. No one even breathed, outside, on the landing pad. The wind was calm. Stars shone above them like distant flames. Lavira exhaled slowly. "It's done," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "For now," he said, "but more will come." She placed both hands on her stomach, smiling just a little. "Let them come," she said. "We're not afraid either." The shuttle doors closed behind them. Engines hummed. The ship rose into the night sky, and as they disappeared into the stars, a new legend was born. A bride sent as a joke. A human mocked as weak. A child never meant to exist. Together, they became the warning. The flame of a new era, and the galaxy would never laugh again.